Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about a subject that I'm actually fairly passionate about. It's got a lot to do with the recent crackdown on password sharing and how large media companies, whether it's game, whether it's movie, whether it's TV show, so on and so forth, have actually started clawing back content that could be argued that rightfully belongs to users, but yes, but no, and it's one of those kind of extremely gray areas that you don't really want to get into. So, as such, rightfully so, the subject today will be how to take control of your media and create your own media server, complete with movies, TV shows that you rightfully own, of course, and how we can integrate that with your current infrastructure at home. Say, if you have a TrueNAS server, how we can direct your media to be read from that instead of making a dedicated machine for it. What you currently see in front of you is a virtual machine with 4 cores and 4 gigs of RAM that we're going to be using as our purpose-built machine that we will be connecting to TrueNAS, and we are going to be feeding our media from. If you're still wondering what this video fully is about, it's essentially creating a Jellyfin server with remote storage to feed media such as movies and TV shows to everybody on your local network. And the reason why I'm not going to be covering how you can stream this outside of your network is because there's just way too many factors to cover. There's definitely tens and tens of guides out there that tell you how to do this securely. Maybe I'll get into it, maybe not. That's still to be decided, but it's a subject for another day. Will I be talking about Plex versus Jellyfin versus MB? Not really. The reason why is that each one of those media servers have their own strength and drawbacks, whether it's ease of use, compatibility with different formats, personal preference, and bias, because after all, it's going to be your own personal environment that we're talking about. Take everything that you see today with a grain of salt. The configuration and setup is fairly easy to interchange between the 3 media servers because of how similar they are, plus or minus small varieties here and there, but for the most part, they are almost one for one. Again, as I mentioned, I'm not gonna go down a whole tangent of which one is better. Is it Jellyfin? Is it Plex? Is it MB? The reason why I am going with Jellyfin is because it's free. There's no licensing fees. It's easy to install. It's quick and dirty, quote unquote. And because it's in, well, they're all Windows compatible, but I will be working in a Windows environment because it's fairly easy and the most familiar to the general public. So this is kind of the reasoning to my choice of software. We're going to start off by installing Jellyfin server. You can download the installation binary from the Jellyfin website, run the executable as the administrator account, and just follow the prompts. Click on next. I agree. Now, there's a little bit of division on how you can run it. Basic installation is recommended for a lot of users who don't know what to do and how to do it. But because we're going to be automating a couple of things and we've already ran the installer as administrator, we're going to go ahead and install it as a service. Keep in mind though, if you have not configured hardware transcoding, this can give some issues and problems with FFmpeg playback. But in our case, this is all information that we're going to be addressing. Click on the next prompt until you finish configure as a service. By the way, I just noticed that the setup file has a small typo over here, Poon figure. It's not a big deal, but leave the default use network service account since we are attempting to run this as a service. Click on next, and once you are happy with the output, go ahead and click on install and let it run its course. You're probably going to be asking what are the general requirements for this type of service to run, especially with hardware transcoding. My personal evaluation is the following: if it's just you and your partner, whether you're going to be running it without a GPU directly off of a CPU, it's going to be fine. If you have one kid, maybe look into potentially getting the equivalent of a Quadro P600. If it's you, your partner, and 2+ kids, please look into potentially getting a Quadro P1000 or a P2000. The P2000 in some cases could even be overkill. It At the end of the day, honestly, it really depends on what kind of client you have at home, whether it's going to be cell phone with the Jellyfin client, a tablet, a computer, and of course, what type of files you will be playing. If you have AVI files, you're definitely gonna want you're definitely gonna want hardware transcoding because it does live conversion to MP4 and X. I think the codec is X264 or H264. I'm sorry, I'm a little rusty on that. And in some cases, X265. But again, depending on how many simultaneous streams you have, you could possibly even get away with on chip or the Intel integrated HD drivers, which are still fairly decent. Sorry, there are multiple ways to do it, but realistically speaking, even if you have an old dusty laptop somewhere, it you don't really need much more than that because of how lightweight Jellyfin is, or sorry, can be as a service. And again, because we are also going to be attaching network directories, or sorry, network media directories, you don't really need to worry that much about storage either. Heck, even if you want to get one of those like passively cooled PCs from AliExpress with 10th, 11th, or 12th gen, those are even much better for power saving and still delivering a decent bang for your buck functionality. Once the Jellyfin installer has finished, go ahead and click on close. And this is pretty much done with regards to the server side configuration until we come back and start configuring your remote storage. But for now, we can go ahead and move over to a browser. One thing I forgot to mention, for a Windows environment, before you move away from your server, you need to allow through the firewall ports 8096 TCP if you're using HTTP traffic, 8920 if you're using HTTPS, and port 1900 UDP for service auto discovery so that you can ensure proper functionality of your Jellyfin onto your local network. If you don't want your IP to change and you want to make DNS work, please don't forget to give your Jellyfin server a static lease in your router. I'll just go ahead and enable those ports and we'll be back with the web interface for the Jellyfin server. If starting the Jellyfin server can take a little bit longer, what you can do to remedy the situation is go into the services applet of Windows 10, right click, go into properties, and under general, under startup type, instead of having delayed start, make sure that it says automatic, non-delay start, or the regular automatic, so that the service can start as soon as the system boots, and then you can close out of that, and it should fix the issue with delayed starting. Also, make sure that when you're accessing the service, you type in HTTP and not HTTPS when going to port 8096 so that you do not get rejected access or refused access or whatever. So this is the walkthrough for the web interface. Just click on next. Select your preferred language and then click on next onto the web interface. This is where you're going to be creating your administrator account. In my case, I'm just going to use Jellyfin with password 123 and then click on next. We're not going to be adding libraries right away because there's a little bit of setup that we need to do with regards to our TuneAS or sorry, in your case, whatever remote storage server that you have. We will finalize this from the admin user interface when we come back and we finalize this. So click on next there, and in the country, select your country, select your preferred language, click on next. Make sure that enable automatic port mapping is disabled and allow remote connections to the server are enabled. Basically, this removes the ability for Jellyfin to use UPnP, and because a couple years ago UPnP had some vulnerabilities discovered, it is highly recommended you do not allow UPnP in your home router or anywhere really. So if you have the opportunity to disable UPnP network wide, please do so and click on next. And once you're all done, click on finish and log in with your admin account. Okay. There we go. So we are in a situation where we want to start adding stuff. As you can see, we're just running it on Windows, the latest Jellyfin version, and we do not have a library yet. Go into whatever file server you have, whether it's TuneAS, whether it's QNAP, whether it's whatever, right? Create a system account. It could be also done with Active Directory, but for the purpose of this video, we're going to keep it as simple as we can, and we're just going to create a regular user for Jellyfin. I'm just going to call it Jellyfin with username Jellyfin. Password is pass123 exclamation point, pass123 exclamation point. I will not be assigning any directories. However, I will check mark the Microsoft account and I will click submit. Under storage, I will create a new pool for this. Sorry, I am just going to zip through it real quick. Media library. I'm just going to zip through it as fast as possible. Now, when you're going to be setting up your library, there's two ways of doing it. There's the network file share or network file system or SMB. For simplicity of use, we're just going to set it up with SMB, media library, and we're going to click on submit. We're going to enable the service and we're going to assign it only to our user. So, hold on just a second now. I believe it was here. Okay, that's fine. So as such, what you would like to do is just make sure that connectivity to your share works and create however many folders you want, whether it's going to be movies, TV shows. We're going to be talking about the file structure and the naming convention just in a minute. After you have confirmed that your library folder works, you need to return to the server where you have installed your Jellyfin server instance one more time. And we're going to map our new folders. So, no, we're not going to map it. Sorry. We're going to add a network location. But before we do that, actually, we need to address one thing. Go ahead and access your file server. And you want to create your folders. So movies and shows. This is just arbitrary, by the way. You can name those two folders whatever you want them. And just copy the path. Come back into your file explorer, and then you're going to be adding a network location. Choose a network location. And because we're keeping this simple, I'm not going to be playing around with DNS. I'm going to be mapping directly to the IP. So the IP of your file server and the name of the share. So we're going to call this movies. Yes. And we're going to call the other one shows. We're going to map this location as well. Yes, that is correct. And boom, we are done with that. Back into your Jellyfin web instance, we are finally going to add a media library. We're going to leave the content type and the display name as defaults. We're going to leave everything as default. Under shared network folder, we're going to call it 192.168 backslash the IP of your file server, and then just finish the name of your. In some cases, if you do end up having trouble mapping a network share, what you have to do is you're going to have to go back into services, and instead of a network account, run it as the local account. So by that, what I mean is if your local account is called Joe Bob on Windows, you have to log into the service as Joe Bob. This is what I mean. For simplicity's sake, I'm just going to be running as the administrator. So go into the services app on Windows 10. Find the Jellyfin service. The Jellyfin server service, I mean. Go into properties. Log on as. And like I said, because I want to keep everything as simple for simplicity's sake, log it in with the local administrator account or whatever your user administrator account is. Like I said, if the username is Joe Bob, make sure that Joe Bob is selected with your account password. Click on OK and apply. It will ask to have the service restarted, so you can go ahead and do that. And when you're mapping a library, all you need to do is click on Add Library, select the type of content that you're going to be in, and when you're adding a folder, under the folder location, make sure that you you fill in the full network share location. File server address, whether it's DNS or IP, and then share location. And under the shared network folder, make sure that you do it one for one. Make sure that you select your preferences before you go ahead and close it out. And click on OK. So now your location is going to show up. With regards to the naming convention, we're just going to be talking about shows just for the moment, anyways. As long as you have the title of a show as the root folder, and then the first level of folders you have season 1, season 2, season 3, season X, so on and so forth. You can have the episodes of the show, season 1 or S01 E for episode, and N for the number. In this case, as you can see, season 1, episode 1 signifies the first episode in the season. And if we go into the Jellyfin Media Player under shows, and I'm an adult in my 30s, and this is an absolute banger of a show. Kudos to the creator and all of the actors. Amazing. If you click on the show and you scroll down to seasons, the next up and seasons is going to be working flawlessly. Again, kudos to Dave McCormack and Melanie Zanetti. This is an amazing show. So far, even our libraries continue to be absolutely remote. As you can see, it is properly mapped to our server remotely so that we don't have to worry about the resources that are going to be taxing the Jellyfin Media Server machine on its own. Again, this is completely doable in a virtual environment or with a very old laptop. I would recommend at least 4th generation i5 series processor if you want to use the Intel QuickSync hardware acceleration. There is a reference with regards to a table. Hold on just a sec. Jellyfin hardware acceleration table. And you can have a very complete and very detailed reference guide as to what is a good ensemble of hardware to combine, for example, under Intel GPU, Broadwell, Skylake. I think Broadwell is the absolute minimum that you need to have, and it's actually pretty decent for what it is. That being said, there's so many more resources, and depending on how deep you want to get in with this, there is so much versatility that you can do with it. That being said, it is not restricted only to the Jellyfin Media Server. This is absolutely doable with your preferred media server of liking. So whether you're a Plex fan, you can do this with Plex. Whether you're an MB fan, you can do this with MB as well. And the reason why I'm saying this is, if my memory serves me right, Jellyfin and Plex are both forks of MB. Therefore, they do have a relatively common base up to, I think, a certain point. But, I'm going off on a tangent. Thank you so very much for joining me on this relatively detailed tutorial. If you guys are able to, please like and subscribe. It definitely helps me more than you know. I'll see you all in the next one.